the whole world makes more sense once you watch this movie, just because it's been so heavily referenced.
12 exits, Moss. You're going close encounters crazy, Roy.
In Project Hail Mary, Dune and Arrival, Jordan Peele with Nope, they're just directly ripping off Close Encounters.
This may be a bit of a hot take, but I don't think these aliens are the best guys.
They came and sunburned him and
They
left.
sunburned half of his face. Sunburn is not a joke, people. They ripped a 3-year-old out of her mother's arms.
You're just a kidnapper who just doesn't follow through. You just don't set your goals high enough. Welcome back to the movie list. My name is John, and I am a filmmaker.
My name is Matt, and I'm a doctor. John and I have been friends since 7th grade. Do you know what? We've been best friends.
Except for that one time. Except for that one time in AOL chat when I was like, "Are you my best friend still?" That actually happened. That was a true story.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about it now.
Yeah. Anyways, John and I have been best friends since the 7th grade. And John's made a list of 100 movies that I've never seen before. I'm watching them for the first time. He's watching them for the 100th time, and we're talking about them one at a time. This week, we're going over Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Do, 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 do. So, Matt, you'd
What's
heard that. You had heard that before, I'm assuming, right?
A
It's like
million times and a million things.
Did you know what it was?
No,
Okay.
I didn't. Like,
That's
this is one of those.
interesting.
This is one of those movies that you watch, and then
Right.
like every pop culture reference that you've ever seen in your life starts like, oh, I understand it all. It's
Yeah,
like you get it
right.
downloaded from the Matrix,
Right,
you know?
Right.
Like, I understand it all now.
Just years of references washing over you.
Exactly. Yeah,
Interesting.
this was one of
Yeah.
those movies for me.
Yeah. Well, most recently, if you guys follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and stuff, which you should, by the way, if you're not already, we went and saw Project Hail Mary together in theaters. Highly, highly recommend it. And
100%.
this was one where there is a reference in it, by the way. An interesting story, actually. In Project Hail Mary, Steven Spielberg actually convinced Lord and Miller, the directors, to use the Close Encounters theme in the movie. They were talking to him in London before they started production, and they're saying, there's a time when they meet the alien. I'm trying not to give anything away here, but they meet a extraterrestrial. Let's call him Balboa, right? So, wink. And when they meet Balboa, they're trying to figure out how to communicate. This character, Grace, is trying to figure out how to communicate. And there is a reference to Close Encounters in it. The do-do-do-do-do. If you've seen it, thumbs down out there. Give me a thumbs down in the comments. But Matt didn't know what that was. And I had to
Correct.
whisper. I had to lean over and whisper, "That's Close Encounters of the Third Kind."
And I was like, never heard of it.
And that's why we're doing the movie list, guys.
Exactly.
So again, like Matt mentioned, if you're just catching up, we're going through 100 movies. And if you guys missed this one, now's your time. Subscribe so you don't miss what the next movie is. But again, this is one that everyone should see, not just because it's really after Jaws, it's when Spielberg really started kind of moving into that sci-fi, the happy, optimistic sci-fi realm. And it has just washed over, like you mentioned, just reference after reference. So many filmmakers reference it. I think like specifically, like I see recently Lord and Miller, Denis Villeneuve, who did Dune and did Arrival. When you watch those movies after watching Close Encounters, you see how much they're really kind of stealing it. Jordan Peele with Nope. They're just directly ripping off Close Encounters, and because it's that good. So if you guys haven't seen it, no worries. We will catch you up on what Close Encounters of the Third Kind is about. Close Encounters follows an ordinary electrical worker named Roy Neary, Richard Dreyfuss, whose life spirals completely out of control after his truck is buzzed by a UFO. The encounter implants a psychic vision of a mountain in his head, sparking a manic obsession that ultimately tears his family apart. At the same time, a mother named Jillian is desperately searching for her abducted son, while a global team of scientists decodes an alien musical transmission pointing everyone to Devil's Tower, Wyoming. The government fakes a toxic spill to hide the landing zone, but Roy and Jillian crash the party just in time to watch a massive mothership arrive. Humanity says hello, using a giant synthesizer, and Roy ultimately leaves Earth behind to join them in the stars. All right, we made contact. Matt, what was your first experience like with the extraterrestrial?
All right. So a couple of things about this movie. Obviously, when you watch through it and you get to see, like, the whole world makes more sense once you watch this movie, just because it's been so heavily referenced since long before I was ever born. And so, like, everything you watch that has that little 5-tone song in it, or when they talk about there's so many things that reference Close Encounters, and they use the
Right.
term Close Encounters, and, like, I've never understood what they were really talking about, except for that some alien thing.
Right.
And now I understand. So obviously, I don't remember every reference ever, but there's a handful of them that I'll probably talk about later this episode. But I watched the whole movie and I had a certain idea about how I felt about it until I was kind of reading up about, like, looking through the IMDb and who's in it and all that. And at that point, I realized, oh, this was made in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm judging it in a totally different way.
Right.
For 1977, like, the visual effects in this movie are crazy. I would never, if you had just shown me the scenes where, like, the spaceships are flying over, I don't think I would have guessed 70s.
Right.
I probably would have guessed, like, maybe early 90s if I
Wow.
was just basing it off the special effects.
Yeah.
Granted, you know, I'm a troglodyte. I don't know this kind of stuff, but, to me, it like, those spaceships didn't seem like 70s graphics, if you know what I
Right.
mean.
Right.
I don't know how they did it. Maybe you have more insight on that,
We'll talk about it.
um,
Stick around.
but that was very impressive to me once I realized, kind of put my mind in the right space. Um, it was interesting. I had to watch it in a couple of installments because it's also very long. Um, and it didn't. I don't know if this movie really went where I expected exactly. Which I kind of like being surprised every once in a while.
Right.
Um, in reading up about this movie, I learned that it's kind of one of the first movies to have aliens as kind of the main thing. It was like an alien movie where the aliens aren't hostile.
Mm.
And it was kind of one of the first movies to do that. I think it's part of the reason why it kind of made a big splash, because it wasn't
Right.
like aliens trying to, slurp your brains out to study. It
Right.
was
Right.
something different.
I think the only one I
Um,
can think of is The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is a 50 movie. We talked about it in the
oh yeah, yeah,
Majestic
yeah.
episode, but that again, that's one that's just still this like kind of hulking, terrifying thing. But yeah, they were never kind of benevolent like they are seemingly here.
Right. And I guess that's really where things get a little weird, because I don't think these aliens are the best guys.
Yeah, okay.
Um, like, they want you to feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, these aliens, they're nice. They're not
Yeah.
trying to hurt anybody. But they ripped a 3-year-old out of her mother's arms, or his
Like,
mother's arms. You know what I
like
mean? Like,
violently.
yeah, they they're kidnapping a lot for a benevolent alien species.
Right.
And then, yeah, they give the people back at the end, and we're supposed to
Yep.
be like, "Oh, they're nice." But if you steal someone's child, that's a crime. You you know what I mean? Like, uh, I don't know if these aliens are so nice. They communicate through music, and we haven't figured out what they're saying yet, except
Mm.
for "Hmm, hmm, 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 hmm," which, yes, it's beautiful,
It's beautiful.
but it could be saying, "We're about to fight." We don't know. We don't know that. We don't know what it means. So, but yeah, they're kidnapping kids. They're ruining lives. They're making people obsessed with them against their will. I don't think they're the good guys. I think they're creeps.
I hate it when people challenge me to fight via sing-song.
Right? We're about to fight.
What is this, West Side Story?
Makes my face look yellow. What does this remind you of, Ronnie?
All right, then we'll just tell everybody that you fell asleep under the sun lamp on your right side.
What for?
You have our main character, Roy.
Yep.
His life's ruined. Destroyed. And who knows how many other people.
Just sunburned him. They came and sunburned him and left.
They sunburned half of his face.
half of him.
Sunburn is not a joke, people. All right. Speaking as a physician, you watch yourself.
It could lead
Wear
to melanoma and all kinds of issues.
Melanoma, squamous cell, basal cell.
Delicious.
Need I go on? That's all I can really think of.
So no, you need not go on.
Wrinkles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the aliens are honestly kind of creeps.
Yeah.
They're a little bit villainous. I realize that's probably a hot take. But how else, like, if you steal someone's child for a couple days and then give him back, are you, oh, he gave him back, he's nice. No.
You're just a kidnapper who just doesn't follow through. You just don't set your goals high enough.
Excuse me?
That's a wild thing to say.
Maybe a little too wild.
So, Close Encounters.
So,
hey,
I'm Matt. I'm a doctor.
Close Encounters has 3 kinds. I don't know if you guys noticed this. There's 3 different kinds. One of them's a kidnapper. But there's actually some science behind this. So the first kind is basically where distant contact. You see them in the sky kind of thing. The second kind is like Roy had what we talked about with the sunburn, right? Where there's interaction, there's some sort of physical interaction, but you're not really communicating with them in any way. So that leads us to close encounters of the third kind, in which you're actually interacting with these alien creatures in this situation. The more I looked into this, the more I realized that Close Encounters is basically a documentary. Hear me out on this, all right? When Spielberg decided to write this and send to the studio and they greenlit it, NASA sent him a 20-page letter basically requesting that he not make this movie.
It's a lot of pages.
It's a lot of pages. 20 pages? I don't know if I've ever read 20 pages, much less written a 20-page letter. And they wrote him a 20-page letter basically imploring him not to make this, which obviously inspired him to want to make it even more because he might be onto something here. And so a lot of this movie was backed by a research of something called the Project Blue Book. So Project Blue Book was a research project done by the United States Air Force between 1952 and 1969. And essentially what it was 12,000 documented UFO sightings that they brought in this Dr. J. Allen Hynek to essentially help debunk them. And he was. Most of them are, Air Force experiments, lights, different just hallucinogens, all kinds of things that you can think of that made people confused thinking that they experienced UFOs. But 700 of them remained what they said completely unexplainable to the point where Dr. Hynek himself started to kind of change his view on whether or not aliens existed at all. And the Air Force ended up dropping him. Luckily, our friend Mr. Steven Spielberg was in the market for a UFOologist, an expert in this field, and hired him as a consultant to help him write the script. So Spielberg hired Hynek to basically write the Close Encounters script. In fact, he's actually in the movie. He makes a cameo in the movie. The guy at the end smoking the pipe with the beard, that's Dr. Hynek, who's actually been researching these, UFO sightings over all these years. The interesting thing is Project Blue Book was declassified in 1976 while they were in production of this movie. So essentially, they sent him the letter asking him not to make it. And when they were moving forward with it, they decided to declassify it after they know there's no way it was going to get stopped. So why the movie was being made. There's a lot of other interesting tie-ins. So the Lacombe character, the French linguist, is based on a real person, Jacques Vallée, a French astrophysicist who mapped UFO sightings all around the world and was the first one who actually theorized that they are interdimensional. He's still alive, by the way. He just did a Joe Rogan episode not too long ago. You can go listen. I just listened to 3 hours of this guy talk. So the guy in Close Encounters, you can go hear him on Joe Rogan talk. Pretty fascinating stuff. The chemical spill, at the end of the movie, where that's the reason why they can't get close. That's based on something that really happened. They had what they called a swamp gas, was the reason why there were over 400 sightings of UFOs in Michigan in the late 50s, early 60s. And then they actually forced the USA, the U.S. Air Force forced Dr. Hynek to actually go and give the press conference to say that that's the reason why those sort of things were happening, which there was a similar press conference in Close Encounters. Flight 19, which this one's interesting. So at the very beginning of the movie, when you come upon the old World War II Grumman airplanes, right? And they're these Grumman bombers and they're in mint condition, which is obviously impossible for something that at that time is over 30 years old. Those planes actually disappeared December 5th, 1945, only a few months after the war had ended, right? So the crazy thing where it gets deep here is that a lot of alien theorists believe that the dropping of the atomic bomb was essentially the inciting incident to make extraterrestrial life pay attention to Earth. We are now an atomic power. And that since then, the number of UFO sightings have quintupled, right? Especially over Roswell, New Mexico, where we were actually testing the bomb. And then, since the dropping of the bomb in Japan. And then only a few months later, the same bombers, the same type World War II bombers who were just doing a test mission in the Bermuda Triangle disappeared, right? How does that happen? And then in the movie, the same bombers show up. Actually, the SS Cotopaxi, the one that shows up in the Gobi Desert, that is another one that disappeared exactly 20 years before that in December 1925.
And that was a ship of some kind, right?
It was like an old, it was an old World War I tanker that was on basically just on a fuel run between Charleston, South Carolina, departed for Havana, and disappeared. Right? How does a tanker that size just disappear? A lot of the Bermuda Triangles theories are around this. And so a lot of this potentially could be explained by Project Blue Book, by the theories that are essentially shown in this movie. And so I think what Spielberg was doing was he wrote this sci-fi fantasy, but really what he did was he take the U.S. government's most guarded secrets and he just slapped a John Williams soundtrack on top of it, right? And he made people pay admission to go and actually learn the truth of potentially what's happening in the world.
Right.
So I think it's all true. I think the only maybe piece of fiction that he added to it is the part where if the U.S. government actually found out that there were UFOs, they would send a French linguist out there. I think we would probably immediately start launching missiles at it. So I think that's the only part that seems a little unrealistic to me.
Fair enough. And then, this is a little known fact, but out of Project Blue Book came Kelly Blue Book, which was a lot of research done by the government in conjunction with aliens to determine the optimal pricing for your used cars.
And now you know. And now you know the rest of the story.
And let me tell you, Jeep Wranglers, forget about it. Never, a used Jeep Wrangler is going to cost you twice as much as a new one. What's that about?
Enjoy the freedom to go far, far away. The Jeep year-end blockbuster sales event.
There's only one way to explain that.
Aliens. They love Jeep Wranglers, especially when they're a little bit worn. That's why. Now you know.
So the title was originally actually going to be Watch the Skies instead of Close Encounters, which tie in to a movie we did a couple of weeks ago, The Thing. That is taken from the last line of The Thing from Another World, the 1950s alien classic, which the last line is Watch the Skies. So that's what it was going to be. But Spielberg ended up sort of taking the reins. Actually, this is one of the only movies he's wrote the screenplay in his career. He wrote AI and one other that I can't remember. And so this is obviously something that was, a passion project of his, but he took the title Close Encounters of the Third Kind, based on the research of Dr. Hynek. And Dr. Hynek actually was the one who termed the phrase Close Encounters of the First, Second, and Third Kind.
Very cool. So this movie opens with it saying present day right at the beginning. And this is when I realized, and maybe for the first time in my life, if you open a movie that way, that's got a shelf life, right? Because it opens like present day and all the technology is from the 70s. And you're like, you sure about that?
How present?
Yeah. You sure about that?
In fact, that can't ever be true more than the day it came out.
The day it's launched. Yeah, exactly.
That's the only time.
The day they filmed
it's immediately
it was
outdated.
Yeah. So nowadays you don't see that often.
Yeah.
I think we kind of caught on after the 70s. Like, don't
do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
They'll get the picture. Right after that, the very beginning of the movie, the first 6 to 10 minutes, they find those planes that kind of got dropped off in the desert and they're all in mint condition and blah, blah, blah. And our French translator, played by Bob Balaban, who's been on our list before, and The Majestic. Watch that episode. It's a good one. But yeah, he shows up and they're talking about these planes that kind of popped out of nowhere. And they're reading the engine block numbers to realize, yes, these are in fact planes that were lost in 1945 or whenever that was.
Right.
So a long time ago, but they're all in mint condition. And so Bob Balaban's character is like, why are they all looking so good? Where's the crew? I don't understand. What I noticed about this scene is like the way that he's talking is very Seinfeld. So he goes, "Where is the crew? I don't understand. Where's the crew? Hey! I don't understand. What's going on?"
Bob Balaban does.
Yes. Bob Balaban is doing like a pretty good Seinfeld.
Well, I don't think Seinfeld existed at this time. Well, I mean, he was alive.
I'm sure he's not doing Seinfeld, but he's doing Seinfeld.
It was pretty good Seinfeld 20 years before
What's
Seinfeld.
What's the deal with these planes? Why are they here? Where are the planes? It doesn't really work. Where are the planes? But you get my point.
Right.
He's very Seinfeldy.
Yeah.
There's no pilots. Why?
Yeah, I think outside of the Seinfeld, accents, which are obviously prevalent. One of the things I loved about that scene is the introduction to like one of the core themes in the movie, which is communication, essentially, right? Like you have sort of an obvious parallel to the Tower of Babel in the Old Testament, right? And so this is thrown in your face within the first few seconds of they're in Mexico. So you have an American who doesn't speak Spanish trying to talk to the Mexicans. And then a French guy pulls up. And none of them speak Spanish. And so you have like a Frenchman and an American and a Mexican, and they're all trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And so you're immediately kind of thrown into this theme of everybody's on completely different pages because none of us speak the same language, which I thought was a cool little introduction to it.
That is a cool introduction. And uh, for anybody who out there who's a Trekkie, um, I really didn't pick up this idea of this movie being about communication, but it very much is. And that harkens back to maybe one of the best episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, which is Darmok. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a
Obviously.
freaking legend. It's about the value of communication. Check it out. But
So I'm interested, like, I know you love Star Trek, and you just said
Yeah.
never a point where like I'm not going to go back and see the movie that is like, I mean, obviously Star Trek was around before this movie, but like modern Star Trek, like 90s Star Trek is obviously pulls a lot from this movie. You just never took the time to go see like the core sci-fi movie.
Point of order: modern Star Trek and 90s Star Trek are not the same.
I don't know, dude. I'm not a Trekkie. Right? I don't know what the heck. I know there was like a 60s Star Wars or Star Trek.
Dude, all right, yeah. So your OG Star Trek is great. Your next gen is like one of the greats of all time. And then Deep Space Nine's pretty good. Voyager is all right. And then after Voyager, in my opinion, like just go back and watch Next
All right.
Generation.
Okay. All right. I guess maybe next we'll do the Star Trek list.
Right. Sorry. So your point, what were you saying?
Yeah. Well, now that we're talking about it, Star Trek, and I mentioned Star Wars, something, an interesting story around this movie. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas were both friends, and they were both relatively young in their careers at the time. And they were trading notes back and forth as they were writing and producing these movies, obviously being Close Encounters and Star Wars, the first Star Wars for George Lucas. George Lucas was like certain that Star Wars was going to be a flop.
Oh.
So much so that the point where he thought Close Encounters was going to crush Star Wars because they were going to come out the same year. And so what they did was they traded points, right? So basically, Steven Spielberg traded 2.5% of his revenue to George Lucas, and George Lucas got 2.5% of Steven Spielberg's revenue for Star Wars. And that actually, they cemented that deal. And to this day, Steven Spielberg still gets paid on Star Wars. So if you're curious, like the way it all shook out is George Lucas for Close Encounters got about $13 million, which is still pretty good.
Not bad.
Spielberg got over $40 million just for New Hope, for his 2.5% on New Hope. So like pretty good bet, which like honestly, like if I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, it's rough out there for filmmakers, right? You got to hedge a little bit. So like, any of you guys want to like, let's say like Lord and Miller, if you guys want to trade like 2.5% on Project Hail Mary for 2.5% of my next movie, just to hedge your bets a little bit. I'm totally open to doing that. Just throwing that out there. If you guys know those guys,
it's a good way to hedge. And
it's
honestly,
a good way to hedge, right?
I'd take 13 million. I don't think
in this economy,
be too upset about it.
40 million can go a long way. But yeah, I always thought that was a cool story. And I love this movie too because a lot of it was filmed in my hometown of Mobile, Alabama. Shout out Mobtown. I shot my first movie in Mobile. Actually, Hayride, which was my first movie. A lot of the establishing shots and some of the big cornfield shots are actually the same cornfield that's in this movie in the scene where Carrie gets abducted by the aliens. So that house is not there anymore. I don't think so. But yeah, my first movie was done at the same location generally as this in Mobile, and yeah, pretty cool.
Speaking of corn, there is a scene very early on in the movie where Richard Dreyfuss's character Roy is driving in his car, and this is right before the aliens come up behind his car. So he's driving, he's looking at all his maps. A car pulls up behind him, and he's like studying his maps, looking all over the town. And then this car pulls around him. The guy swears at him. He's like, "Hey, get out of the road." And then Roy says back to him, "How do I get to cornbread?" Turkey! And when
You tell me where cornbread is? Turkey!
He says turkey with so much venom in it. This guy, he's devastated, dude. That guy's never recovering from that turkey. And I'm going to steal that, dude.
Turkey is a good line.
That turkey hit with such force.
It hit hard.
I mean, you ever been called a turkey like that?
I don't know if I've ever been called a turkey generally.
Well,
Even in a
buckle
nice
up,
way.
buddy, because it's probably coming.
Are you going to call me a turkey at some point in this episode?
I didn't know that I could do that, and now I know.
Yeah.
So watch yourself is all I'm trying to say.
You didn't know that was an option.
Dude, the way he said turkey, that guy's still reeling all these years later. So
that's great.
I really enjoyed that moment in the movie. Just in case you couldn't tell,
right.
I loved it.
This is the scene where he's like driving down the road with and he's trying to like track down the spaceships.
This is before any spaceships encounter him. So he's just a regular guy at this point. He's driving. This guy's like,
he doesn't even have the excuse of like being like, overcome by alien.
The aliens made me do it. Doesn't cut it here. And then right after that, the aliens get him. But at this point, he's doing this genuine, and he's slinging turkeys like you wouldn't believe.
Yep.
And they are devastating.
Right. So the aliens come and they sunburn him partially. And then they kind of take off, right? There's the few different there's different orbs of aliens, and he's driving. And it's really nice of them to hang out on roads, to drive, on the roads. That's really convenient of the alien spaceships who can fly.
Right.
Yeah, so that he can chase after them.
I think their point is to be seen at this juncture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They basically rammed into his car almost. They're not trying to hide at this juncture.
Right. Yeah. I think probably to me, one of my favorite parts in the movie is when they're chasing those orbs and they cross the Ohio state line and the guy's like, you gotta pay the toll. And even though it's a freaking alien coming through and there's a cop chasing them, right? So you get a cop chase scene of chasing an alien. And then they fly off, as alien spaceships do, as UFOs can fly off in the sky. And the cop decides he's going to chase them off the cliff, right? Which is already a bold choice. But I don't know if you noticed this, but when the cop flies off the cliff after them, he just fully turns into a Muppet. He just fully turns into Kermit the Frog. And he's like, I don't know. His arms just become felt in the car. Yeah. And he just has the flappiest arms as he's flying off the cliff. I've watched that scene 20 times. I don't know. It's so funny to me, but it's just so funny to me. I love watching it.
That's great. One thing in that kind of same segment of the movie I noticed is before those aliens zip through, first of all, they go through the toll booth.
That's what I'm saying. It's really convenient.
They go through the toll. And here's the thing. Before they do, all the toll arms raise up. So the aliens, they're flying. Pay. They can fly over the toll arm. Why did they do that?
They paid. They paid the toll.
Yeah, they must have. Ahead of time. They sent him a check in the mail a couple weeks ago. It's the only way.
It's really nice. They want to make sure to pay
all
their
the
bills.
arms raise up, and then the spaceships fly through. Spaceships fly through the toll.
They have the sun pass. They have the fast pass that goes on your car. The
peach pass.
The peach pass. Yeah.
That is very funny.
Yep.
So right after that scene where the guy drives off the cliff. I guess I shouldn't say right after. There's some stuff that goes on, but next real big thing that happens is it shows us in the Gobi Desert, heading towards the Cotopaxi or whatever the thing's called. The ship,
the Cotopaxi. The SS Cotopaxi. Obviously,
did I get it right? Was it Cotopaxi and I got it right?
It was Cotopaxi. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. I don't know what.
Dude,
where that's
it.
from.
We all know. So. They're going through the Gobi Desert, and I did notice, hearkening back to one of our other episodes, Lethal Weapon, right? And this, you've got all this kind of caravan of SUVs riding through the desert,
I'm so
Guess
interested to
what?
see where this goes.
Helicopters, car level. Now, there may be something I misunderstand about. Yeah, there may be something I don't know about this. If you are a helicopter pilot and you happen to see this, comment down below. Why would
Why?
you fly a helicopter at car level in a caravan like that?
So the
I don't
movie could
understand
happen.
it.
It's just
It
so
seems
the
like they
movie.
should be overhead, but it's like you got cars, you got helicopters, same level, driving through the desert. And I was like, you know where else I did that? Lethal Weapon. So there's that. Then they go and hear for the very first time what they call the Indian sounds.
Okay.
And that's the
Yeah, all the guys like singing is like the choir, the
yes.
Indian choir. Yeah.
And what they're actually singing is Aya Re Aya, which I'm
Okay.
probably butchering, but it's Hindi for he has come.
Mm.
So these
Interesting.
people, yeah. So there's actually some meaning behind what they're chanting. It's not just the sounds. So they're actually saying, kind of chanting, he has come, and the
Interesting.
So, that I learned courtesy of Jeff Bezos.
Good job,
on
Bezos.
Amazon Movies. Yeah. Thanks, Bezos. Amazon Prime was like, "Hey, did you know?"
I don't think
And I was like,
Bezos did
"Holy
that
smokes."
specifically, but
No, this one said typed by Jeffrey Bezos himself. It actually said
and his
that
like
on there.
billionaire laugh. He was like,
I made a spaceship. He did.
Literally made a spaceship. He saw this movie. He's like, I'm gonna do that.
That's why, and that's why it was written by him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, though, because there are so many spiritual, like, biblical and spiritual elements to this movie. And as I mentioned, you know, the Tower of Babel tie-in, heavy 10 Commandments and Moses story elements to it. In fact, I don't know if you noticed this, in his house, 10 Commandments is playing on the TV.
Really?
Yeah. There's 10 people who have come there that the aliens have chosen to come up on the mountain, right? The Devil's Tower, which is sort of the Mount Sinai in this situation. There are the 12 astronauts that are going to go onto the ship. Could be the 12 tribes of Israel, could be the 12 disciples. And then obviously there's this coming down and there's this sharing of communication and potentially even like new law, right? So this movie is kind of packed full of the biblical significance, which is interesting. So to hear that, which I didn't know that part of the Hindi, the he has come thing, I think that even more ties into some pretty obvious, symbolism there.
Sylvia, come on. We're going on a little adventure.
So Steven Spielberg tells a story pretty often about how his dad woke him up in the middle of the night and pulled him out in the middle of nowhere to go and watch this meteor shower, which is definitely what kind of sparked his fascination with the worlds out there and the extraterrestrial and what else could it be. And I think it's interesting too, because he talks about it being overwhelming, right? And there's this sense of fear almost, but then also overwhelming beauty, which really plays into this movie, right? It's the back and forth of from the Jillian, the mom's point of view. This is terrifying, right? But from Barry, the little boy's point of view, it's fascinating. And so that's one thing I think this movie does incredibly, is it somehow simultaneously makes it scary and beautiful and almost kind of fascinating at the same time. And that's kind of, he pulls from that experience of like seeing these meteor shower and just being overwhelmed emotionally, scared and just sparked by the wonder of it all.
In my opinion, the best scene in this entire movie is Barry's abduction. And I know that there is other scenes in this movie that have a lot of notoriety. They're kind of like the favored scene, especially the scene right at the end with the kind of the music communication. But in my opinion, the best scene in this movie is Barry's abduction, because as far as emotional impact, it is by far the best. Because you have a mother and her son in a house by themselves
Right.
And then things start happening in this house that you can't explain. And then you have, like you pointed out already, the side-by-side comparison of whimsy from the son's point of view, because he's already encountered these aliens once. So he's not afraid of them. And then the mother, who is in just abject terror.
Go away!
And then her son keeps trying to run off, and she's trying to protect him. And he goes through the little doggy door, and he gets snatched. And that gives you such an eerie feeling.
Yeah.
And it reminds me so much of the scene in Signs, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And one of my favorite scenes of all time is when the family in the movie Signs is all kind of huddled together, and you can hear the aliens running along their front deck, and they're running around the side of the house, and then you hear them running on the roof. And then they realize they didn't nail up the attic.
Right.
And then you kind of see the family like, we gotta go to the basement, because they realize they're coming in.
Right.
There's a way in. And just that eerie feeling that you get like in your soul. It's the same feeling. And after watching this movie, I realized Signs was borrowing from Close Encounters, but I didn't know that when I watched Signs. But they conveyed that same emotion flawlessly. Like it's eerie, it's unsettling, it's terrifying, but in a way that makes your skin crawl. Like I don't think that's easy to do. There's not a lot of movies where I felt that. Honestly, the only ones I can really think of are this one on that scene specifically, and then Signs.
I think the even worse part of it is with Signs, you have Graham and you have Meryl, right? So there's at least two men protecting the children, right? In this situation, it's just Jillian. And she's trying everything she can to protect her son. And he's not exactly making it easier. Like, he's really kind of going along with him willingly.
Right.
And so his self-protection instincts aren't great. His self-defense, he really just wants to get kidnapped by these aliens.
And the fact that they make it a little doggy door. So
she
he
can't
can
follow
fit
him.
he can fit through it, but she can't. And
Yeah.
they literally pull him out of her arms.
Yep. So the little actor who played Barry, little 3-year-old Carrie Guffey, they called him on set one take Carrie, because even though he was 3, he was like consistently nailing his takes, like nailing his shots after one take. And in fact, the shot in the movie you're talking about where you see the aliens coming in from his point of view, that was done in one take. And the way Spielberg did it was he walked up to the glass and said, "Hey, I have a present for you." And then said, "Roll camera, roll sound." And climbed up a ladder and got a present. They handed him a little gift. And he opened the gift just a little bit at a time, starts unwrapping it and lifts it up. And he said you can just see his eyes are like salivating. Like he just wants that present so much. And he takes out just like this little toy car and shows it to him. So the wonder in his eyes, it's as simple as a little toy car. They use tactics all the way to like dressing up as gorillas on set to like make him laugh or make him scared. I don't think it was anything dangerous. I think he's just, he's 3-year-old. Maybe he doesn't need intense direction. Maybe he just needs simple things. And that is one thing that Spielberg has always done well. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this was Spielberg age 28, 29, before he was married, before he had kids. And so I think that evolves over his career, the older he gets and as he has a family. And you can see that for sure in his later movies, like maybe the parallel between this one and something like War of the Worlds, right, with Tom Cruise that he made. The protection there is probably is pretty noticeably different than in this one, where the kids are just kind of like constantly getting free of their parents. Like there's the one scene where Barry's just like walking around in the middle of a highway. It's like, where's the mom? Like, what's happening here? So like, I think he probably was a little bit more sensitive to that throughout his career.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a flying saucer.
That's the one I saw. What was the evening?
I love the press conference scene so much. Like, one of the things I love that he's like, this is a flying saucer, and holds up the picture. And then he's like, and they hear a guy in the background goes, that's a flying saucer. That's the one I saw. And he was like, this is a plate that my son threw in my backyard. Damn it.
Got him.
Dude, freaking got him, dude. He got him good. I love that scene.
Dude, this scene has so much happens in this scene. So it's like the guy's talking, and then he's like, "Yeah, sorry, there's no somewhere." But he's like, "Why don't you just tell us there's a military operation from the Air Force going on in this area?" And he's like, "I wish I could tell you that. That's easy to say, but that's not the truth." And maybe there is something going on. And then Roy is like, "You can't trick us by agreeing with us," and everyone's like, "Oh," they roll it. And he's like, "Hey, come on, guys!" And then right after that, you ever been in an argument and the argument's going on and you're kind of on even footing, and then somebody joins your side, and then you're like, "Okay, I'm right here." You're like, "Yeah, well, these lights sunburned me, and
Right.
they made it, now I
Right.
know things I shouldn't know, and blah blah blah." And these are all compelling points. And then someone's like, "Yeah, I saw a Bigfoot one time." And then you're like, "Oh no."
Dang it.
I saw Bigfoot once. 1951. 37 inches. Heel to toe.
Wow.
No.
The guy who
Don't-
joined
you're
my
not on my
side wants to
side.
talk about Bigfoot. Frick! Nothing wrong with that. By all you cryptozoologists, fun. You know what I'm saying? That's freaking fun.
Definitely.
But if you're trying to win a debate,
you don't want that guy.
someone's like,
You don't want
"I
that guy
saw
on your side.
Bigfoot. His foot was 37 inches from heel to toe."
That's
And
so
he made
huge.
a sound. I'll tell you what, I didn't want to hear it twice in my life. Once is enough. Like, you lost that argument. Okay? It's over.
That guy may have been a sleeper agent for them. He may have been working
For
for
the-
them.
it's
Like,
for the-
all right,
yeah, for
right?
the
As soon
government.
as somebody makes a good point, say that you saw Bigfoot.
Say that you agree with them, and then say you saw Bigfoot.
That's
Like,
actually a really
you-
good tactic.
You don't want the Bigfoot guy on your team. No offense, Bigfoot guys, but side with the other guy. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
In a debate setting, you side with the other guy.
Yeah, it goes pretty hard downhill from there for our poor buddy Roy. As soon as Bigfoot guy agrees with him, pretty much everybody thinks he's crazy from there.
Yeah.
He goes home and his own family thinks he's crazy. One beautiful scene I did think is when they're at the dinner table and when he kind of breaks down and says, talking to the kids specifically, "I guess you guys can tell that, something's wrong with daddy."
Well, I guess you've noticed something that's a little strange with Dad.
And the shot where he's tearing up and his son is also in focus, tearing up and just looking at his dad, and just sort of like you can actively see him like losing respect for his father, which is pretty powerfully done. I think really just brilliant directing by Spielberg.
I mean, I don't know that I would say that necessarily he's losing respect.
Yeah.
I don't know that a kid his age would necessarily see it that way.
Right.
I think he's scared.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's crying, because his dad's not right.
Not the same. Yep.
Not the same. And I mean, like, that potato scene comes out of nowhere. The potato scene goes hard. Dude, like,
Just so many
yeah,
potatoes.
you just don't expect it. Like, they're just having dinner, and then dad gets 4 gallons of potatoes on his plate. First of all, why do they have that much potato? But I digress. He gets so much potato on his plate, and I didn't realize that scene was so iconic.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I haven't seen this movie until like this week, but when I watched it, I start to realize this has been referenced a lot.
Everything.
And, my favorite show of all time, and I've already mentioned this on our podcast, is The IT Crowd.
Yep.
My favorite. I've watched it a billion times. And one of my favorite episodes, like I have a handful of them, but one of my favorites is an episode in season 4, episode 4. It's called Italian for Beginners. If you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor and watch that show. Watch that episode. It's so good. But Roy is so this is confusing. One of the characters in IT Crowd is called Roy. And in
Not Roy
IT
from
Crowd,
this.
exactly. In IT
Okay.
Crowd, Roy has a girlfriend. He's just gotten in a relationship. And her parents, she's an orphan. Her parents died, according to her, in a fire at a sea parks, which is like the British equivalent of SeaWorld, I think. Because they have whales and seals and stuff. And she said it happened, I guess, at a sea lion show. And a fire at a sea parks is crazy. And so Roy is like, why would she tell me that? Like, that's so implausible.
Right.
And if she had to pick a lie, why would she pick that lie?
Right.
A fire at SeaWorld, essentially. Like, that's crazy. And there's a scene where Roy brings for his lunch just a bunch of mashed potatoes, and he makes a sea parks out of the mashed potatoes. And Moss, the other character in the main IT guy, one of the two main IT guys, says,
"It's a sea parks, isn't it? You're building a sea parks out of mashed potato."
There are 12 exits, Moss. 12 exits for only 200 people.
You're going close encounters crazy, Roy. You need to let it go.
And I never understood that until I watched this. Because he's making a sea parks out of mashed potato. And it's a direct reference to this specific scene, which is one of the most iconic scenes from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So, thank you for making me watch this. It taught me
welcome.
something I didn't know before about one of my favorite things in the world, the IT Crowd.
Hey, it's one of my favorite things in the world is expanding your mind to the great movies of the movie list. And
That's our whole purpose here.
That's right. Guys, if you haven't yet, subscribe. And more importantly, I like to know what you guys thought was interesting in this. So leave us a comment on what's been the part to you that jumped out to the most emotionally.
Roy?
So, in this segment of the movie, like Roy is kind of going off the rails. He's obsessed because, the aliens have compelled him to start seeking what is it called?
The Devil's Tower.
Devil's Tower. So he's obsessed with Devil's Tower, but he doesn't know that that's what he's looking for. And so he's like losing it, trying to figure out what's going on. He feels like he needs to, like, every time he has a pile of anything, he's like trying to sculpt it into Devil's Tower, and he doesn't know why. And that's why he does the whole mashed potato thing. He's trying to make Devil's Tower out of the mashed potato.
Right.
He makes it out of shaving cream. He makes it out of clay.
Right.
I can't help but think that it's very funny. Like, he keeps making piles and be like, what does it mean? What does it mean? This means it's important. It means something, and it's important. What does it mean? It's just a pile of mud.
He's going to his wife, like, what do you think?
Could you seem more insane than that? Like, what
you
does
imagine
it
her
mean?
point of view, like just bringing some mud, like, what do you think? Thoughts? Any thoughts?
Just speaking to you? This pile of shaving cream I
And
got?
she's like, yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great.
That look like
babe."
anything to you?
She's really killing it.
So, and then like he's just like he's pulling up chicken wire and plants and stuff. And one of the funniest scenes of the whole movie is he's trying to find tidbits to build his little Devil's Tower model.
Yeah.
And the garbage man is trying to throw away his trash, and he's fighting the garbage man for his trash can. And the garbage man finally like, all right. And he just pours the trash out on the ground. and takes the trash can
He
with
didn't
him.
have to do that.
Like,
When
the
he
guy
let
was
him
about
pour
to
it.
throw. He was like 2 seconds from throwing the trash in the truck.
That's so mean. So rude.
He just dumps it on the ground. This guy doesn't care about anybody, dude. Not about anyone. Which,
Oh.
it does kind of bring me to the idea that, like, as I'm watching this movie, I don't know that Roy is really a good guy.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta give him maybe a little grace because
Yeah.
aliens,
Mm.
but he abandons his family. And you could argue maybe his family abandoned him because his wife left to go to her sister's house because he's losing it.
Right.
But then at the end of the movie, he goes with the aliens.
Right.
Like, bro, you got a wife and kids. You're not going on a long weekend with the boys.
Right.
He went with the aliens to who knows where. There have been guys missing since 1945 and haven't
Right.
aged a day.
Right.
And you're just like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of thing an upstanding guy does, in my opinion.
Yeah. I understand. I mean, you're right. First off, like, you're definitely right.
Mhm.
I have thoughts on it.
Tell me.
My first thought is the literal side of it, which is like Barry was only gone for like a few months, right? At most.
If that, yeah.
If that, right? So we don't know for sure how long they're going to be gone, right? They could be gone just another few months. In which case, like, the scientific advancements that could be made from somebody going in there and learning from them is like invaluable, right, to us as a human race.
Sure.
Beyond that, like, we send, and you gotta understand, these are the late 70s, right? This is the tail end of the space race, right? So we were consistently seeing astronauts go to space and not know if they were going to come back. And a lot of those astronauts have families, right?
Sure.
Are they bad people for getting in those shuttles and potentially could explode, and they don't know if they're ever going to be coming back, or they're going to be stuck in space, or any of those things? He's an astronaut, basically.
I would just imagine that those astronauts had some kind of conversation with their spouse and children before they went to space.
Yeah, maybe, but they were like showing them like mud and like shaving cream and like,
Oh yeah. How do you argue with that?
Exactly.
How do you argue with
that? Secondarily, I think part of it is just an argument I use all the time, which is so the movie could happen, right?
course,
All of this
of
was leading
course.
up to the point where his obsession, it's all about his obsession. And if he was just if they were like, come on, let's go, Roy, and he's like, nah, guys, I'm good. I got to mend things up with the old lady. That would have been a little bit of a buzzkill at the end of the movie. And then, kind of the third add-on to that, Steven Spielberg's dad, left his mom when while he was still living there. And you see that theme all throughout his movies, right? Of the absent dad. And he didn't really find out until years later why. And it's kind of a messy thing, but to some degree, I think this is a boyish Steven Spielberg trying to deal with the fact that his dad left him, right? And didn't really understand it. And so maybe he's inventing the story of the dad left so that there's some great other purpose out there that was grand enough that would be worth, leaving your family for, which as a dad myself, I don't think that there is such a thing.
Correct.
But you see that in that story, and you see that through Spielberg's writing as to why that happened. And so we could judge the fake Roy, but it's all has to be done through the lens of its artist, which is Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, and maybe Roy gets a pass because he was compelled to do this by the aliens,
right?
Who again, maybe the villains of the piece. But here's here's where I have a bit of an issue with Mr.
Okay.
Roy.
All right.
Is Roy, right before our alien concert that we get to enjoy at the end, he kisses Jillian.
Yeah. I don't love
Is
that.
he gonna tell his wife, the aliens made me do it? Come on!
I didn't love that one.
It was
And
the
honestly, it was just
alien.
confusing to me. I
was
wasn't
so confused by
I didn't
it.
understand their relationship. I thought they were friends.
Right.
And then they hug at the train station, and I'm like, oh, that was did you guys just meet? Like, didn't you just barely talk?
Right.
And then he kisses her. Maybe
Yeah.
he's thinking like this is the last person I'm gonna see before I get on an alien spaceship, but
He didn't know that was gonna
disproves
happen.
my point, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe Roy's not the best character.
I mean, I just know it would be frowned upon if
Yeah.
anybody I knew did something like that.
Steven Spielberg actually said verbatim, if he wrote this movie today, and this was years later, if he wrote this movie today, he couldn't write Roy leaving his family.
Of course.
So he regretted it. But obviously he was 28 when he wrote it. So like, what do you know? If you're a single guy at 28, what do you know about, having kids and a family?
That whole segment, like, the only thing I could think of is like, so what they're selling at this train station is two things. They're selling birds and they're selling gas masks.
Yeah, I mean, it's good market.
But here's what I'm thinking. Why on earth do they have so many birds and so many gas masks in this little town?
In Wyoming, yeah.
Yeah, middle of nowhere, Wyoming.
I mean,
They
it's
got
Wyoming.
just hundreds of birds. Hey, you guys want 10,000 canaries? Here we go. And guess what? Just as many gas masks.
The gas masks I buy. That part I believe in Wyoming. That they seem like the state to have
They're
gas masks. Shout out
doomsday-
Wyoming if we got any listeners.
Shout out
in
Wyoming. You
Wyoming.
guys, you
Let
got
us know in
gas
the
masks.
comments how many gas masks do you guys have.
Just seems like an odd set of wares to be
Right.
ready at
Right.
a drop of a hat for that
Right.
many people.
I do love that they still buy them and they're driving down the road and he's like convinced. He's like, this whole thing's a put on.
Yeah.
And then he just looks and then he just puts
Puts
on
the
the
mask
gas
on.
mask. Yeah. That's pretty
That was
good.
funny.
Yeah.
And
Funny
then
scene.
one of the things I noticed, and it made me hate the government in this movie, is when they do get caught by the feds
Yeah.
when they're on the territory in that 200-mile radius.
Yeah.
They have those canaries in the cage, right?
Yeah.
And they get pulled out of their cars and they're gonna get, they're in captivity now. They're gonna the people are gonna get taken to that camp and interviewed and blah blah blah. When the guy pulls the canaries out of the car, the canaries are laying down inside that cage as to indicate that they're dead. Like the gas that is real and killed them. But we later learned that gas is not real.
Right.
Which means the guy who grabbed the cage had to quickly kill the two birds. If I didn't hate them enough, this guy's snapping little bird necks. What a monster.
Not great. Not great. The U.S. government is not presented well in this film. Unfortunately, they're not the good guys.
Unless they speak French. In which
That's
case,
true. Which they're not the U.S. government at that point. They're French.
Except
If
for
they
maybe
don't
it-
speak English, there's a good chance they're not a part of the U.S. government. They do somehow eventually work their way up the mountain, up the Devil's Tower, and then into this, seeming little base, where probably the best, really the lead up of the whole movie, is the arrival of first the, initial few, I guess, kind of scout ships, and then the mothership. Spielberg said he wrote this movie backwards, that he knew he wanted that scene. He wanted the scene where the aliens make contact. He knew he wanted a musical element to it. And then he just sort of worked backwards of like, all right, how do I get characters here in a way that makes sense? Something interesting I think about that is he said in an interview with James Lipton. Actually, James Lipton was the one who called out that Spielberg's mom was a musician and his dad was a computer scientist. And the way that he communicates, or the way that people communicate with the aliens, is through music via computers. And Spielberg even said in the interview he didn't actually realize that until that time, this was like 20 years after the movie was released, which is pretty cool. He
a free psyche eval.
Exactly. That literally, he didn't even realize he was doing it. This whole movie is basically therapy for Spielberg.
Very lucrative therapy.
It's very lucrative therapy, but still, it's great. It's great therapy for all of us. Great movie therapy. Then the which you see the hand signals from what's his name, Truffaut, Lacombe in the movie. That's actually a real thing. That's something called the Code method. Which is a way that they actually can teach music to people who are deaf, right? So it's a way. So basically, the actual hand signals he's using are the actually, it's re mi do do sol. So re mi do do sol, which is the tones in it, and the freaking alien, he can do the hand signals too. But it is introduction of communication, with the aliens, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I wondered why they included that. Like, that's so hyper specific. The fact that they included that had to be intentional,
right?
And I think it does kind of harken back to that kind of, sort of that idea of in Star Trek, the episode Darmok is very much about how valuable it is to be able to communicate. Because basically, Darmok is an episode that's about aliens who have a language that's so hard to understand that no one's ever been able to really breach that communication barrier.
Right.
And then the Enterprise and Jean-Luc Picard are able to kind of crack the code. But in order to do that, the captain of this ship, this alien ship, kind of beams them both down and ends up kind of sacrificing his life in this whole arc to establish communication. So it's that valuable.
Right.
And then, in this movie, the way they kind of, I guess, show that is that they're using this very esoteric way that humans have found to communicate with people who are deaf or unable to communicate.
Yeah.
And then the aliens themselves are using that type of language to communicate back with the humans.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I wonder if the aliens are deaf too, because they're using, obviously they know some form of sign language. They're using these tones, and some of the lower ones, especially, that the vibrations are strong enough to to blow out the glass, and so you can still be deaf. I mean, Beethoven, obviously, was famously deaf and still one of the greatest composers of all time. Speaking of which, John Williams is one of the greatest composers of all time. He deserves to be up there with Bach, Beethoven, Mozart. Dude's a goat. In fact, this year, the year this movie came out, he was nominated for Close Encounters for the Oscars for best, best score, and lost to John Williams for Star Wars. So John Williams lost to himself for Close Encounters, only to lose to himself for Star Wars. That's how good this dude is. But this final scene, I think, is he's just flexing on us at this point. Not only is this incredible tie-in, the 5 tones, the emotional, roller coaster he takes us on, but then when the aliens actually come out, the whole movie, you have this kind of parallel of Pinocchio, of maybe Roy thinks he, wants to be a real boy, or whatever the Pinocchio tie-in is. And I don't know if you noticed, when the ship opens up, John Williams actually works in the motif of the When You Wish Upon a Star. Spielberg said he wanted it in there intentionally, specifically, not only because the Pinocchio thing, because he wanted you to feel the childlikeness of it. He wanted you to feel safe in that moment. He didn't want you to be afraid right at that moment because it was fearful.
Interesting.
But even before that, when they're doing the low notes, there's the little motifs of Jaws. Dun-dun. Dun-dun. So John
did
Williams
notice
is
that.
just sort of doing the greatest hits basically in this scene. And only somebody like John Williams can do that. It's a 10-minute scene where it's mostly just music and colors, and you're fully captivated, fascinated, afraid. That's the power of somebody like him.
That's so cool. I actually did. I did notice the Jaws. I didn't notice that When You Wish Upon a Star or whatever it was, but yeah, Jaws. I did actually notice. Like, because like the bass when they play that, like those low notes, they just hit your eardrum like a gong.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they stand out so much.
Yeah.
The way they did that, really, really, truly excellent.
Yeah.
So when I was watching the first little bit of the movie, I was like wondering, like, why would John want this movie on the list? And then when you see the climax of the movie, it's like, all right, I get it.
Yeah, it really is
I get
the
why
movie. The whole
Yeah.
climax, the last 30 minutes is the movie. It is that scale that I was talking about at the beginning of, Denis and Jordan Peele and just all these incredible filmmakers have drawn from. This is a movie I really wish I saw in theaters. To just the scale
Take it in.
of the mothership coming up over the mountain, and just even like on my TV, how huge it feels. With the music and just the special effects and the practicals and the models. And, obviously this is well before the days of heavily integrated computer graphics. This is mostly, compositing, paintings and models and kind of mixing that all in. ILM who built a lot of the models and the miniatures and the early CG, and Star Wars did the models on this. They built the spaceship. Actually, I don't know if you noticed, as the spaceship's coming up over the mountain, you see a little silhouette of an R2-D2 on the ship. So you can see it's the same team that built, a lot of the sets and a lot of the characters in Star Wars, worked in a little R2-D2 in there.
That's cool.
But it's just to show that those worlds are kind of connected, and this, but it's the magic of it, man. That Spielberg effect of this just huge ship coming over, and you're not afraid. You're amazed.
It really did feel huge.
Yeah.
Just this gigantic monolith of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very impressive how they did that. I did want to know, kind of in that same thing, like, one of the effects that they use in this movie is something that I've seen a lot in movies in that same era, kind of like late 70s, early 80s, maybe even throughout the 80s, but where they show the clouds roll in, and the clouds look so like fast moving and dynamic, but you can tell they're not real clouds, but it's such a how would you describe it? It's just visceral the way that they show it. Like it feels so powerful when those clouds roll in all of a sudden. And there's a few scenes in the movie where they even like manipulate them, like right after Barry's abduction. You can actually see like there's one segment of the clouds where it looks like something has just passed through them, and they're like wobbling in that one spot. Like, how do they do that?
It's so cool. I'm actually super glad you brought this up, because this is one of my favorite little filmmaking tricks. You're right. This was used heavily through the 80s, right? Ghostbusters and Neverending Story, any of those big moving cloud scenes. This is the first movie it was used, right? And the way they did it is a lot more simpler than you think. It's something called cloud tanking, which basically what they do is they pour fresh water and salt water into a fish tank. And then they just eject milk into the fish tank. And because the water is clear and they can light it, the milk as it's flowing through the separated freshwater and saltwater flows so interestingly. So they can light it in really interesting ways. They can backlight it. They can put the different colors in there. And then it's very easy to kind of composite that onto, the shot that you see in the movie. And it just looks so flawless and seamless. But it's a fish tank with milk, So, I mean, that's the ingenuity of the, what they had to do in practical effects back then when they didn't have the computers that you can just, AI type something up. They got creative, but sometimes the simplicity of it, and it's such a cool effect.
Right. There's a power to it, the way that it looks on screen.
100%.
You just don't get that. I haven't seen anything like that since the 80s. Like the one that comes to my mind is The Never-Ending Story.
Yeah.
That's the big one I think of when I think of that specific effect.
Yeah.
It's just you don't see it anymore.
Have you seen
bring it up?
Have you seen Nope? Jordan Peele's Nope?
Never seen Nope.
Okay. So it's used a lot in Nope, right? Nope is like literally a direct. Jordan Peele even said he wanted Nope to be if you thought you were watching Close Encounters, but it was actually Jaws. Right? And then the sense of like it's like this magical wonderful alien, and then they start like trying to kill him. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I mean the clouds used in that of the sort of the cloud cover of the UFO. But again, that's kind of another thing you see that as a trend so much in alien movies, because that is something mentioned significantly in Project Blue Book is UFOs hiding within cloud cover. But the fact that they were able to tie that in, via practical effects, is just so cool.
That is cool. In that last scene, one of the things I just thought this was so funny. And when they're playing that 5-tone sequence back, they play it, and then they just start playing it like faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. Like, why would they do that? I don't understand why they do, but they start playing like just like over and over again. And all I could think of, and this is such a stupid, it's just a dumb corollary, but all I think of is Jamie Taco, and I think you should leave. Where he just tries to say all the lines as fast as he can, and so he's like takes everybody else's lines because he can say them faster. Like it doesn't make sense just to do it faster. That's not how stuff works. So like they play the 5-tone sequence and they just crank it up as fast as they can get it to go. Why? Why would they think that's a good idea?
I don't know, but I love the response of the mothership. It's like it's like it's like reminded me of like an Adam Sandler like enough. It's like shut up. Shut up. Everything goes back to Adam Sandler.
Yes, I mean it's just such a weird idea that they tried to play it so fast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like little tidbits of things that I noticed in this movie, and I don't really fit in any particular place.
Right.
I'm just gonna give them to you kind of rapid fire.
Okay.
Right now.
All right. I'm ready.
So here's 5 things I noticed in the movie Close Encounters. Roy calls it the Aurora Borealis, which is funny. In the scene where there is a globe and they're trying to find the latitude and longitude, they find this globe in an office somewhere, and a guy walks in and says, "That globe is $2,500. Gotta be careful." And they're actively trying to find a latitude and longitude given to them directly by an alien species on first contact. That's funny. Also, when they're going over the globe, one of the guy's fingers is insanely hairy. That's a bonus. Number 3, when Roy is in the bathroom, his bathroom, when they open the door, is insanely red, and they don't explain why. All the light in there is like bright red. Who has that in their bathroom?
It's the 70s.
Number 4, the outfit that Roy is wearing when he's having his breakdown outside of the house is like way out of season. Everybody outside is in shorts except for him, and he is in boots, jeans, a shirt, and a bathrobe. All right. And he's not just out there in all that gear chilling. He's pulling up trees. He's shoveling dirt into his window actively. He's throwing these plants in his house. It's a lot of clothing for that amount of activity, and it's clearly way out of season. And number 5, the aliens at the end are not all one style. They come in a couple different varieties. So you've got the big, lanky one that comes out first, walks out of the spaceship and goes, and then it lanks back into the ship.
It's like, I'm
You
here.
get all the little babies that come out, and they all have derpy eyes and long fingers, and they do their little like dance routine or whatever they do, and then they go back in the ship. And I guess while they're still out there, this I guess kind of third thing comes out and does a little hand signs with Sacre Bleu, our French guy, and then it bounces. That's the only thing we see of that particular variety, but there's at least 3 styles of alien, and those are 5 things I noticed in the movie Close Encounters.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, some good realism, some good non-realism. I like the alien that comes out. It's like, what's up? Here I
Are you
am.
not entertained?
I have arrived.
Dude, also,
you know-
Aurora Borealis is more fun to say than Aurora Borealis.
It is. It is. I'm
We
gonna
should
start
have
saying
called
that
it the
from now
Aurora
on.
Borealis.
One of the things I noticed, we always do our like, oh yeah, right moments, right? And so maybe this is not oh yeah, right, but it's more of a kind of that sucks moment. As they're driving in and towards the Devil's Tower, and they start just seeing like the bulls and like cows and goats and sheep that have just all died, right? Seemingly from this gas.
Right.
Right. And you kind of mentioned it earlier with the bird.
Mhm.
This gas is not real, which
Right.
means that somebody's job who works for the government was to kill these animals and then just go scatter them along the road. Right. Now, if that's your job, you probably are not like, you're probably not, code word, like, like you're not in the loop on what's going on. You're a low level guy, which means they told you, hey, we need you to go kill some animals, kill some cattle, and just spread them out across the road. And you're just out there,
Spread those babies.
freaking signed up for the Air Force where they told me I was going to fly, that, be the best I can be at the Marines. And you're just like killing sheep and scattering them along the road in Wyoming. Not what you signed up for. I'm going to say, oh, yeah, right, on our National Guard killing sheep and, just spreading them out.
Fair point. For some reason, that reminds me of some weird little tidbit I realized about this movie when I was looking through its IMDb. Nothing to do with oh yeah rights, but there is a specific character on the roster whose name is Wild Bill,
Oh, interesting.
which makes this our 3rd movie already on the list with a Wild Bill. That's more than 10%. By the way.
Dude, and if we had Silence of the Lambs, it would be like a third of the movie.
Another one, yeah. I guess a 4th. Yeah, we've already had 2 Wild Bills. This is our 3rd Wild Bill. And
Who was the
yeah,
third? We had Green Mile. What was the other one?
I don't remember, but we
Okay.
specifically
We for
mentioned
sure
it
had
in one of
Wild
our
Bills.
episodes. We did.
How much you want to bet is the Sasquatch guy? Is definitely the Bigfoot guy in
that
in
may
this
be
is
Wild
like,
Bill.
I saw Bigfoot. He's definitely Wild Bill.
Yeah, I think the other Wild Bill may have been in Butch and Sundance.
Okay, that makes sense.
I can't remember though, but
Yeah.
we've had at least 2 already.
All right.
My oh yeah rights. So one of them is that when Roy is going and pulling up the plants, they're clearly potted plants. Like they've got like a perfect little like partial cone at the bottom. Like these are clearly out of a pot. He didn't just rip these out of the ground. So oh yeah, right for that. Number 2, when he's looking at his little first clay model in his basement that's kind of small, he's like, it's not right. What's wrong with it? And he starts pulling on the top. Like the perfect little top segment slides off and leaves it with a flat top. That's never happened with clay ever in all of history.
Yeah.
And so that one, I was like, yeah, right.
Yep. Yeah. Another little mini, oh, yeah, right. How I Met Your Mother is a great scene in How I Met Your Mother. I quote all the time, which is when Marshall's getting married and he shaves his head on accident. And they're trying to figure out like how to fix his hair. And they like steal a toupee and they go next door to like an Indian, they steal from a museum an Indian matrimonial headdress that he's going to wear from like a Cherokee Indian. And then at the end, Lily ends up like, hang on one second. And she gets a hat and she puts a hat on his head. And he looks over and he goes, hat. We went to Indian matrimonial headdress before a hat, which is this moment. Like all the other people, literally everybody else in that helicopter just drew pictures. Like you could have just drawn pictures, but he went to 12-foot full-size like mud statue in his living room. Why'd you do it in the living room, bro? Just do it outside.
He literally lost his wife and kids over that sculpture.
Family just because of the sculpture. You didn't have to do like literally everything would be fine. They would be supporting him if he just got out a notepad and some colored pencils. And instead he's like, no, if you're gonna do it, you gotta lose your whole family over it.
I mean, if he had just stuck with mashed potato, it would have been fine.
It would have just been fine. It would have been fine. He could have stuck with playing with the food. But he had to go that far. All right. Well, we got to bring this one to a close. So we are going to go over and do our ratings. Every week we go over story, rewatchability, fun, the new one, emotional impact, and filmmaking craft. Matt, I will kick us off. Story, I have at a 4. Strong characters, a little devoid of plot other than the last probably third act, which is very strong. I'm going to have it at a 4. Rewatchability also at a 4. I think this movie has elements to it that are very rewatchable, but been a while since I've seen it. I'm happy to forget this one and then come back around to it when I've forgotten it again. Fun, I have it a 7. It is very fun. I think going back to what we were talking about before with the practical effects, with the big spaceships and the clouds and the silliness of the acting and stuff like that, it is very fun to watch. So I'll give it a 7 on the fun aspect. Emotional impact, I have it a 5. Not a super emotional movie, but there were a few elements to it that did move me. Again, especially now being a dad, the scenes with little 3-year-old Barry, that moves me. The scenes specifically with Roy and his son or his kids and them seeing him kind of melt down is hard to watch. And so I have that one at a 5. And then filmmaking craft, I have it an 8. Just, Spielberg really starting to step at his home. I won't say peak Spielberg. I think that comes probably in the next 6 to 7 years when you move into the E.T. to Hook era peak Spielberg. But he's really kind of making an introduction of, I'm going to do a sci-fi movie, but it's going to be a optimistic sci-fi movie. This movie is horror, it is sci-fi, it is family drama, it's all of it mixed together. Just peak Spielberg. Got it at an 8. Matt, what do you got?
All right. Story for me is a 3 on this one. Just because there's so much that you have to sort of yield over to, well, it's aliens in order to make this story work.
Right.
Which, enjoyable movie. Story is not what's driving it, really. Rewatchability for me, I put it at 4. It's a good time. There's so much cultural relevance to it. I think it's probably worth watching again. There's a lot of stuff in it that's very funny. I don't know if it's intending to be funny, but if you're really paying attention, it is. For fun, I gave this one a 5. And I think for me, 5, I think is fair.
Yeah.
Just because again, if you look at it as a movie from its era, the special effects are crazy. The soundtrack is a blast. And by that, I say soundtrack. I really mean more like the, I guess, audio design side
Yeah.
of things. With the the 5-tone thing, and then you have the whole like last segment of the movie where it's basically just like a alien rave. Like that's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And then emotional impact for me, I put it at a 5. And I gave it a 5 really because of that one scene where you have Jillian and Barry in the house and the aliens on the roof. Like it's just
Yeah.
so visceral.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful scene as far as how
Yeah.
it's made. Like if that doesn't evoke the heebie-jeebies, you're not alive.
Yep.
You're zombified if that doesn't
Right.
hit you somewhere. Science realism, can I do a not applicable? Because I mean,
you got to put a score in. You got to put a score in.
I'm
If
gonna
it's
give
low,
it
that's
maybe
okay.
I'm gonna give it a 2 on science realism.
I think
Maybe the one place where you really encounter science that they're trying to pass off as real is when they're using that sleep gas. And with any kind of drug, there's a effective dose and then there's too much. And they're just dumping this stuff all over
enough to like
the
kill
mountain.
birds. Enough to like actually kill
I mean, they're
birds.
just there's so much of it.
Right.
They're just they
Right.
don't care. They're spraying it everywhere. That's no.
Yeah.
You can't
I
just take an
think
unlimited amount of sleep gas.
Dr. J. Allen Hynek would have some words to say with you about that with his pipe. But I don't know. We'll save that for another time, I guess.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, we are moving right along the movie list, guys, and we're gonna keep it ethereal. We're gonna keep it science-y, but not do aliens. We've done a lot of aliens recently, and we're gonna stay away from aliens, and we're gonna go into monsters. I think our first foreign language film on the list, finally, the
Really?
Guillermo del Toro classic, Pan's Labyrinth. Input eyeballs on my hands. So I'll do that in post. I wish I wouldn't have said I was going to do that because now I'm going to have to actually do that. It's
Now
going
you're
to
gonna
take
have to do
forever.
it.
But
Of course.
whatever. And we're going to spend the time doing the eyeballs in the hands. You guys spend the time telling your friends about us and commenting what part you enjoyed here and what are your ratings on First Encounters of the Third Kind. And have you had any close encounters of any kind? Hopefully with aliens and
friends, family, burglars.
Family burglars. And so stay safe out there, guys. And we'll see you next time on the movie list.
See you next time.